Your problems are your patterns, and your patterns are your soul lessons. Let me explain what I mean. If you're going round in loops and cycles, repeating the same problems again and again, it's because you are not identifying the pattern behind the problem. Before we begin, I'm Nikita, and I simplify your journey by sharing my journey. I have more than 2 decades of experience in combining spirituality with practicality. Today, I'm going to help you understand how your problems are actually patterns, and those are actually invitations from your soul to be able to work through your soul lessons in this lifetime. So, have you noticed how the same situations keep appearing again and again and again in your life? It could be relationships, it could be confrontation, it could be situations that require you to speak up and use your voice. Whatever you're going through, it's not a coincidence. It's happening because you are supposed to be learning something from it. However, when we go through life, we're on autopilot. We're just trying to get through the day. And our problems turn into obstacles, and we see them as things that we just want to avoid rather than learn from. So, what happens? Something else has to happen and something else. And I see this time and time again with my clients. They come to me and they say that they've been repeating cycles for years. And this is not a coincidence, as I said. It's because you are supposed to be here to study. Being on earth is like being at university or school. You're here with a unique curriculum. You're supposed to be learning. You're supposed to be taking assessments. You're supposed to be growing and evolving. But because we're so busy or we choose to avoid our lessons, that's why they end up repeating. So, one of the things that I do with my clients is I help them to dissect their problems in order to identify the patterns. So, an example of this is one of my clients came to me and she was very shy, she was very timid, she didn't like speaking up. So, already I can tell that one of her soul lessons must be to be able to use her voice. So then she started giving me examples of how she's constantly being put into situations where she's having to use her voice, but she's not comfortable in doing so. And so she's a teaching assistant at a school and she was asked to cover a class and the children were not listening to her and she had to raise her voice and she felt really bad doing so. And then afterwards, she had a meeting with the head teacher. And as she was telling me all about her story, the only thing that I was spotting the whole way through was this lesson coming through. She has to use her voice. Anyway, we worked together for a few months and then she met somebody. Now, she met somebody who her parents disapproved of. So again, the same lesson came back again. Her having to use her voice, having to exercise courage in order to tell her parents that this was the person that she wanted to be with. So the point I'm making is until you actually address the root cause, you're not going to be able to grow and evolve. So what we did with this lady is we really worked on building her throat chakra. So we worked on opening and expanding that area so that she would be able to speak with ease and with flow. But not just that, we had to work on her solar plexus chakra because that's the area of self-worth. So if you don't feel like you are worthy of being listened to, no matter how much you work on your throat chakra, nothing is going to change because although you'll be able to speak, you won't be able to feel as though you're worth being listened to. So the solar plexus and the throat chakra go hand in hand. We need to work on both of them together. So I worked on chakra balancing with this client, and we also worked on eliminating her fears around speaking up. So she had a lot of mindset blocks, as you can imagine. She had a lot of limiting beliefs. So we had to really work on reframing those, reprogramming the brain. And finally, we had to work on her nervous system, because if your nervous system doesn't feel safe, no matter how much healing you do, you're not going to be able to go through situations which require you to step up and be a new version of you, because your lower self, your inner child, your nervous system doesn't feel safe to do so. So those are the three things that I did with my client. I did chakra alignment, I did mindset work, and finally, the most important bit, which many people miss out, is nervous system recollaboration. So that's where you really feel that you are stepping into this new version of you that's able to handle confrontation or whatever it is. Now, the measure of that work was when her colleague actually approached her at work, and she started being quite forthcoming. She was actually a little bit aggressive, and she accused this lady, my client, of doing something wrong with the children. And it was quite a sensitive issue that was brought up. And what amazed me was that my client didn't react. She just remained calm. She said that even her heart rate didn't go up. And she said that her colleague was really close to her and really like in her, space. And yet still she was able to stay calm and she didn't react. And she just answered in a very measured tone that this is what had happened. It was a particular incident with a child, and she explained what she'd done. She said that she wrote it in the logbook. Like, the way that she handled it just showed me that she passed that assessment. We often hear of the phrase test from the universe. All that is it's basically an assessment. It's a way of measuring whether or not you've actually worked on that. So her challenge, her problem, so to speak, was that she didn't like speaking up. She felt very uncomfortable speaking her truth. And her sole lesson was to have courage to be able to speak her truth. And then a measure of that was when she was faced with confrontation and she was able to handle it with ease. After that, a few other incidents happened where she was required to also be tested, and she passed with flying colours. So that shows me that this works. First of all, identify what the pattern is behind your problems. Second, identify what the soul lesson is behind your problems and patterns. Now, the soul lesson is what you came onto earth to learn. If you don't learn your soul lessons in this lifetime, you will need to be reborn again and again and again until you are able to learn them. As I said earlier, we each come with a unique curriculum of what we need to work on. So it's very important that you get down and you start studying, because if you don't, the same problems, the same patterns, the same lessons will keep reoccurring. I hope that makes sense. If you are intrigued by the content in this video, please comment below, subscribe, like, and forward this on to somebody who needs to hear this today. If somebody in your life is repeating the same patterns again and again, they might be in karmic loops. Karmic loops is what keeps us stuck. It keeps us in a state of karma, when actually what we want to be doing in this lifetime is transitioning to a state of dharma. Dharma is truth, authenticity, and it's our soul's purpose. It's our very reason for being here on earth. As I said, if we don't achieve it in this lifetime, we will need to be reborn again. So let's do as much as we can now. I'm going to be updating more videos onto my channel, so please stay tuned. Let me know if there's anything that you would like me to share, and I would be more than happy to do so. Until next time, namaste.